Hello, welcome to Gardener's World. I'm trimming back this lavender hedge because it's finished flowering, which is actually very early because of the heat this year. The scent is still amazing. As I'm cutting, this lavender fragrance is clouding around me. But the problem with lavender is that you can't cut back into old wood, or at least not safely. So therefore, you keep leaving a little bit of new growth, and it gets bigger and bigger and baggier and saggier. And you can see you've got these woody bits here, and they're very brittle, and they do not regenerate. I like the way that it flows and dips and billows. It adds character to the mound. The mound, by the way, I think has found itself. We made this from all the waste material that we accumulated over about 15 years when we made the garden. But it's somewhere we now come and sit. It's very private, and yet it feels open, which is a fantastic combination. And strange things are happening, because as well as we've got lavender here, which is terribly Mediterranean, loves the sun, we've got great bananas growing at the back. Interestingly, the banana on that side is much healthier than the one on the other side of the summer house. And that's simply because it's less exposed to wind. We often underplay the importance of wind in the garden, but it really affects how things grow. Not just by bashing them, but just simply making them grow slower. However, the lavender is not affected. These are opium poppies, and you can see that most of them have got little slits all the way around, and that has been caused by birds. Nearly all the seed heads have been eaten in that way. So there won't be many seeds left in. But what I like to do when I'm finished with poppies, because they seed themselves very freely, and some of these will have fallen out, is just turn them upside down like that and give them a shake. And any seeds that are left behind will fall to the ground, and they will germinate next spring. Having cleared the poppies, what I've got now is an empty space in the border. And it's not too late to go to the garden centre, see something in full flower, which is not normally the best way to buy plants, bring it home and put it in the ground. It won't grow a great deal between now and the end of the flowering season, but it will add a hit of colour, and next year give you a bigger, better display. So I have been shopping, and what I've got here are some heleniums and Nephofia, but we'll start with the heleniums. This is one of the most famous of all heleniums. This is Moorheim Beauty. It's got the most incredible marmalade-y colour that really sings out at this time of year. So I'm going to pop this in a group. And behind it, I'm going to put a Nephofia. This is Mango Popsicle. It's a really good orange. It's because it's flushed with yellow, and that gives it depth. This is a flare of colour. And if we pop this here, and you notice I'm placing them before I'm planting, like that, and stand back and have a look. See, immediately that's filling the gap, and yet it's in with the rhythm of the colour of the jewel garden. And those will go on flowering for at least another month or so. Whatever you plant this time of year, even if the weather turns wet, give it a really good soak, because the ground is bone dry. If you have a hosepipe ban, obviously you can't do that. But if you can keep them watered, it's a really good way of adding life and vitality and colour for the borders for the rest of the flowering season. Now, from the mid-1980s to the mid-1990s, Gardener's World came from Barnsdale in Rutland. Barnsdale, of course, was owned by Geoff Hamilton, and he was the main presenter, the nation's head gardener, and a much-loved person. Adam had the good fortune to work for Geoff when he was a young man. And a few weeks ago, he went back.
I find it very hard to believe that we lost Geoff Hamilton 30 years ago. And for me, it's a moment to stop and reflect. He had such an influence on me as a gardener. I'm 21 years old. I get a job at Barnsdale Gardens for the great man. If one person set a moral compass as to how I was going to garden for the rest of my life, it has to be Geoff. I never thought I would be doing this, but it only seems right to hand over to the man himself.
Hello, and welcome to the first of a new series of Gardener's World and the beginning of a new gardening season. All very exciting stuff. I am Geoff Hamilton, and we're at Barnsdale, which is my own garden and the home of Gardener's World. We've got about 4 acres of garden here, which is quite a lot to look after. But don't worry, because much of it is divided up into smaller gardens, much the same size as your own garden at home.
Really, when you think back, it wasn't just about new gardens. It was Geoff, the man, the gardener. You have to remember who he followed. Percy Thrower, the jacket, the tie. It was that generation that came out of the war. Use of chemicals, control, ultimately putting food on the table. And then this fellow rocks up, jeans, scruffy old jumper, shirt, and says, I've got a different way of doing this. And the artisan cottage garden, I think, encapsulates what Geoff Hamilton was all about. You remember, he was always showing us how to do something on the cheap. You know, the obelisk over there with a ballcock on top. We're going to make a compost bin, but not just a normal compost bin. We're going to make it look like a beehive. So it was practical, but it also looked good. But it didn't just stop at making things. A garden like this, everything had to be propagated on the cheap. So either seeds, cuttings, he loved it.
If ever you see me wandering around the garden with a polythene bag in one hand, a knife in the other, and a glint in my eye, then you can guarantee I'm after cuttings.
Interestingly, with Geoff, he always wanted to appeal to the broader audience. You know, we had the artisan's cottage garden, but then the gentleman's cottage garden. You know, this was about quality of materials, and he loved to support craftsmen. So here, these were all handmade bricks, and I cut every single one of those bricks and all these pots in the middle to create this ring. The arbour there, you know, that was solid hardwood timber, so it had that idea of quality. Now, one thing that strikes me about Geoff as I've got older is that he was always curious about the world.
Right at the beginning of the season, the American Space Agency got us to sow some tomato seeds that had been in space for 5.5 years. They were concerned that the weightlessness and the radioactivity would prevent them from germinating or from growing on well. Being an American variety, they've taken some time to ripen, but they're growing perfectly okay. So the Americans will be pleased to know that you can grow tomatoes in space. Am I going to eat them? Not in your life.
I think I'm with Geoff. I wouldn't have eaten that tomato either. Now, this is the reclaimed garden. Just another demonstration of how Geoff was so ahead of the game. So this garden started as a conversation in 1995. Geoff came down and said, "Boy, I've got an idea for next year's Gardener's World Live." "OK, boss, what's that?" "I think we should create a reclaimed garden. Come up with some ideas and come back to me, will you?" I definitely didn't realise at the time the trust that he was putting into me. I feel very privileged that ultimately I had Geoff Hamilton sort of guiding me through that period of life. I can remember building this garden at the show and then Geoff turning up just as we got our award, which was Best in Show. And he was chuffed to pieces. And again, it's that trust thing, isn't it? The saddest thing for me was that Geoff never saw this garden built back here. Today, one of his sons, Nick, carries on the legacy and passion for the garden. Your old man, he loved the veg garden, didn't he?
You'd always find him in here. If he wasn't doing anything else, you knew where he was.
You'd see his backside, and his head was down and doing. Yeah. But actually, as I've got older, you realise quite, in a sense, what your old man brought to the party was amazing.
Yeah, very forward-looking. And so the organic thing was such a big thing for him, but he didn't just go ad hoc at it. He did his trials, he made sure it was the right way to go.
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah. And I mean, you could say the same about peat as well. And the peat-free. It was really important to him.
Yeah, absolutely. But the research he did beforehand to understand what the peat bogs did and why they should be saved. And, of course, it was important, therefore, to find something alternative to use.
Yeah. I mean, he was the first person that really sat me down and explained to me the loss of wildflower meadows and what that actually meant.
Yeah, I think he was great at that, wasn't he? And I liken him very much to David Attenborough with people. There are a small amount of people who come on the television and you are completely captivated straight away and you listen to what they say and you believe it wholeheartedly. And that's because you know that they know what they're doing.
Yeah. He never seemed to tell us what we had to do. It was like, this is what I've gone away and learned. I'm going to show you. It might be an idea if you have a go.
Yeah, and that was always the encouraging way, wasn't it? Just follow me. I've tried it and it works. Come with me.
Yeah, brilliant. Wow, what a day. It feels like every corner you go around, Geoff is here. If you ever watched him when he was at the helm of Gardener's World, you will recognise that alkathene pipe in front of me. I feel privileged just to have played even a small part in the creation of this place. And I know I'm not the only one that he influenced. He touched so many lives, and I'm sure he will continue to do so.
Geoff died suddenly and far too soon, 30 years ago. And he's still much missed. However, I'm delighted to say that I've been able to take part in a celebration of Geoff's life and work, which will be on BBC4 tomorrow night. Sitting here at the end of the cricket pitch, I'm looking down at scorched grass. The path down the middle has got some green on it because that's been cut regularly since March. But either side is completely yellow. But if you have that at home, your lawn, or if you've had long grass that you've cut and cleared, and it looks dead, don't worry. Certainly don't bother to water it. No need. As soon as we get rain, the grass will recover. It's amazingly hardy, and the roots will be fine. It's just the top growth that has gone. So that's one less thing to worry about. Okay? Come on. These very hot summer days we're having are not bad news for everything. Some plants, like tomatoes, are loving it. As long as they get enough water, they will thrive in really hot weather. And for years, I either didn't grow tomatoes outside or did so as an afterthought, because here at Longmeadow, it was too wet, too cold. They'd grow, but they wouldn't ripen properly. But now that we're getting much hotter summers, outdoor tomatoes become a really viable option. So these are doing well. These are Gardener's Delight. I put these in the ground at the end of May, after the last frost, and other than watering them occasionally and keeping them tied up, I've done very little. What I have done is pinch out the side shoots, so that can come out like that, and that one can come out too. The reason why you pinch out side shoots, by the way, is that they are taking energy and strength from the cordon and from the tomatoes that are being produced. If you just focus on the cordon, then you'll get a better crop. Make sure they're tied securely. So, for example, this here, that could snap if there was wind, so we'll just tie that like that. Make sure they're supported strongly. Side shoots are out. That one probably can be tied in too. The other thing is, as the days get shorter, then ripening slows down. So you don't want too many green tomatoes by the end of August. That flower there is unlikely to produce fruit that will ripen in time. So I'm going to cut this off there, and then all the energy and effort is going into what is left behind. Now, these are crowded quite close together. So if it gets warm and moist, blight is really liable. And in this part of the world, blight is prevalent. Blight, by the way, you'll see as pale brown splodges that spread very quickly. Ventilation is the best way to combat that. And it's very simple. All you have to do is just take off lower leaves. And at this stage of the year, if they come off easily in your hand, then take them off. And I would take off up to the first truss. Now, these are the same variety, Gardener's Delight, and you can see they are starting to ripen, not dramatically more than outside, because it's been such a hot year. But if it had been a cool summer, these would be way ahead. Now, I want to show you something straight away, because this is a problem you tend to get more in greenhouses than you do outside. This is blossom end rot. Blossom end rot is a result of the plant not having enough calcium. And the calcium is in the soil, but it's locked up. The plant can't access it. And the reason for that is either too much water or too little. Although increasingly, I'm thinking that too little is the real cause. I'm really learning an awful lot this year about this, because it's got up to 45 degrees in this greenhouse in the very hot weather we've had. So these plants need much more water than I'm used to giving them. So for tomatoes, which I always considered to be the chief crop of my greenhouse, I now actually think that if this weather continues, this climate continues, you don't need a greenhouse to grow tomatoes. You can grow them outside just as well. Now, Sharon Preddy has created a truly exotic, tropical space in her garden at Seven Sisters near the Brecon Beacons.
I love gardening. Always have gardened since I was a child. I had my own little border then, and I think that kicked it off. Welcome to my garden. As you can see, it's a small front garden in a tropical theme. It's 9.5 by 11.5 metres. This is the Trachycarpus that started it all off. I'm Sharon. I live on the outskirts of the Brecon Beacons and I've lived here over 30 years. Around 28 years ago, I started the garden and it was just like a 1-foot border around grass. And then around 2018, the tropical style garden took off. This is a Scheffrula Taiwaniana, and it looks like an umbrella tree that you grow in the house. It's got a lovely palmate leaf. It's evergreen. It likes the shade and it prefers a bit drier rather than wet soil. It loves living in Wales and I love it. My inspiration came from travelling on holidays. I saw that there was more to gardening, different styles sort of thing. Bigger leaves, the palms, tropical sort of look, and recreated it in Wales. My garden's a Balinese style garden. I do like the flowers, but my personal thing is the leaves. This is Sonchus fruticosus, or common name is tree dandelion. It's grown from seed. The first year I keep it indoors, and then the second year it gets planted out, protected for a year in the garden with just a bit of fleece through the worst of the winter. It has leaves like a dandelion, but on a massive scale. I don't like the flowers. They like a dandelion flower, bright yellow, so I do cut them off. But I love the leaves. One of my favourites is a Tetrapanax because of the shape and the size of the leaves. Planted that about 6 years ago. So that's huge now. I did protect it the first year or maybe 2 when it was small, and then it looks after itself now. This is a Rus Taffinia. It's an autumn lace. It's a bit like an Acer, has lovely autumn colour as well, but it also has nice red stems now. It can be a bit of a runner, but I just take out what I don't want. It can be challenging growing these type of plants. We do get it cold here, we're on the edge of the Brecon Beacons, and we have a lot of rain, and also the wind. I've lost some plants in the past, and you learn as you go along what's hardy, what's going to get through the winters, what needs to be protected. This is a Musa Basjo, a hardy banana. It's about 5-year-old. I do have to protect the bananas. I put chicken wire around them, fill it with straw, and then put a tap hole in over the top, keep the wet out. It likes a lot of water and it does like a lot of food. I feed mine on chicken manure and horse manure. The banana does give you the tropical look. I think it's because of the size of the leaves. When they come out, first of all, they're a nice paddle shape, perfect, but the wind does shred them, but they're naturally supposed to shred in the wind. I get my plants from specialist nurseries, friends. We do a lot of swaps, a few cut-ins, but I'm limited for space for the cut-ins at the moment. Grow a lot of seeds. These are eucomas. They're grown from bulbs. The common name is pineapple lily. They're pollinated by flies. To me, they smell like mashed potatoes, but they do make a lovely shape and form. I like to try and grow the agaves and succulents in the pots so I can take them in through the winter. Hostas, I've got a bit of a thing for hostas. They don't do so good in the ground because of the slugs, but in the pots, they're great. The garden has become a bit of an obsession. I like the journey of it, do you know what I mean? Journey of gardening. I'm pleased with how the garden's turned out. It's a lot of work, but it's enjoyable work, and I wouldn't be without it.
I always find it fascinating that gardeners tend, and this is obviously a sweeping generalisation, to fall into two camps. You either are those that try and make their gardens an idealised version of where they are. I mean, that's certainly what I've done in this garden. And then there's the other camp, of which Sharon is a shining example, who create a garden that connects to somewhere where you have been, that is about as different from where you are as possible, but it transports you. And what always amazes me is how well that can work. And certainly Sharon has pulled it off brilliantly. Now, I have said that I'm very firmly in the former camp, that I want to celebrate the essence of place. And that means letting things seed. And across much of the garden, fennel seeds itself everywhere. So a couple of days ago, I was going around the garden, cutting back fennel where it had seeded itself and was blocking the view or just sort of not quite working with everything around it. So I had a great big armful, and I thought, well, it's a pity just to put that on the compost heap. So I got a dustbin, stuffed all the fennel that I pruned into it, and hey presto, that's my flower arrangement of the week. I'm very happy with the way that the woodland garden has developed. I remember when I started this saying to you that I wanted to prove that shade need not be a problem. Too often we see shade as something we have to overcome, whether it's damp shade, dry shade, or deep shade. The whole point about this planting here is everything is in some sort of shade. And I have to say, this summer, it's been a joy. It's always just had that lovely, soft, dappled light. Green and fresh and cool. But the orchard beds suffer horribly in this drought. Combination of no rain, burning hot weather, and the trees sucking up any last bits of moisture means that it's not at its best. But it will survive, we know that, and also there are still things to do. So, for example, where you have Philadelphus, the mock orange here, it's finished flowering, and now is the time to prune it. At this time of year, it's producing vigorous new growth. These are the shoots that will carry next year's flowers. Wherever have been flowers, like here, these will not flower next year. So, to thin out the plant and encourage new growth and extra vigor, I'm cutting back the older wood with its spent flowers, whilst leaving the new growth to carry next year's display. If you've got an older bush with a lot of old wood in the middle, it's a good idea at this stage to get down in there, and it's sometimes easier to do this with loppers than with secateurs, and take out the oldest stems from the base. Now, you don't want to do more than 1/3 of this. Take more than 1/3 and you're weakening the plant. But if you want to completely renew the plant, take out 1/3 every year for 3 years. And what you'll have is fresh growth with fresh vigor and more flowers. So, if I just take my loppers, so that whole thing has come out. Not much new growth on that, so I'm not losing flowers for next year, and that's just stopped the spread of it. Gives a little bit of shape and also lets light and air, and that's always a good thing. The Philadelphus copes with the drought, but obviously we get more growth and therefore potentially more flowers if we had rain. But in the end, What goes on in the earth is what's going to dictate how this performs. And Carol is making her second investigation into the unseen world of plant life and our gardens. And this week she's looking at, to my mind, the most magical relationship of the lot between roots and soil.
All of us gardeners are on a voyage of discovery. Our plants and our gardens have got so much to teach us, providing we listen carefully. Isn't that right, Irinju? Right now, there's a whole new dimension to explore. We're living through an amazing age of revelation, thanks to the latest technology and the work of incredible scientists. We're boldly navigating a brand new botanical frontier. One of the most important parts of all our plants is roots. Now, we don't often think about them because, of course, they're underneath the soil. We don't see them. But every single plant on our planet is attached to that planet, to the earth, through its roots. And it's through those roots that plants are supplied with all they need to grow and flourish. Water and nutrients come from the roots up into the plant and keep them going. Now, I've got a really good example here. This is a geranium pratense, a meadow cranespill. And these troughs are supposed to be for growing vegetables. So I was going to move it, and I started to dig it up. And then I could see this wonderful root system. And I thought, I'll leave it for now, give it a bit of a drink, and keep it going until I could show you. So let's have a delve and see what we can see. Here we go. And now you can really see what's going on. So there's these great big thick roots, but oh, look at the ends of them. Can you see all these tiny fibrous roots just clinging to the soil? Loads and loads of little feeding roots. And the whole root ball is almost as big as the top of the plant. I promise you I'll put you in a pot afterwards and give you a good water. I really will. But thank you for showing us what's going on under there. But that's not all that's happening. As science advances, we're finding out more and more about the kind of processes which take place. To delve into the secret world of roots, I've arranged to talk to Professor Sasha Mooney. Hello. At the Hounsfield facility at the University of Nottingham. Hello, Sasha. Thank you so much for joining us. It's absolutely brilliant. We know that you're going to tell us everything we didn't know about roots, because you're a soil scientist, aren't you?
I am a soil scientist, but I don't think you can be a soil scientist without having an appreciation for plants. In the same way, I don't think you could be a plant scientist without an appreciation for soils. And certainly, the impact of root systems on the soil, the hidden half that we don't see below our ground, is so important that, there's hardly any soil in the world that isn't impacted on plants in some shape or form.
So can you tell us a bit more about how the roots and the soil interact?
Almost a little bit like for us when we move into a new home. The fixtures and fittings might not be quite as we would like. That's the same for a plant. So roots need to rearrange the soil so they can get better outcomes. So
Roots can actually rearrange the soil?
Absolutely. As the roots are expanding and elongating down into the soil, they release a gel-like substance at the root tip that helps pave their way. It's like a lubricant that helps them to push through the hard soil. But the exciting thing about this gel-like substance, which we call exudates, is that it's full of sugar. And as a result, it's the food for everything that lives in the soil. So this material is released into the soil, and it very quickly becomes a bit of a party zone for all of the microbes in the soil. So about 90% of all of the microbes that live in soil live in and around the root surface, because this is where they get their food. And the different microbes can fulfill different roles that are beneficial to the root system. So we have microbes that can take nitrogen from the soil air and convert that into nitrate, so almost like a free fertilizer for the soil.
Yeah.
There's things like phosphate that are trapped in the soil aggregates and the particles that microbes can attack and can help release. So the microbes are being fed, and in return, they're giving the opportunity for the plant to improve its nutrient uptake.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It's absolutely perfect. It's a two-way partnership. So roots and the microbes are interacting together, rearranging the soil, trying to make it beneficial for both of them. And actually, you know, that gel-like substance, I often think of it as nature's glue. And this glue is brilliant for sticking particles together. And that sticking of particles is really, really important, because what it does is it makes soil aggregates, those lumps and clumps that we see on the surface. That creates the pores in the soil, those gaps that sit between the particles, which can lead to advantages for things like water retention and for trying to improve things like drought. In fact, we noticed recently that in the very tiny aggregates, you can get a buildup of carbon dioxide gas, which leads to aggregates exploding. They break into tiny pieces. So, you know, if you imagine that below our feet all the time, there's these little explosions happening below the ground, all rearranging the structure, all changing the architecture of their environment to their benefit.
We're talking about, or you're talking about microbes, and it's so fascinating, but what about fungal interaction?
So fungi are another one of the root system's preferred partners, if you like. And a big advantage of fungi is that they can get into places that roots can't, you know, so the hyphae really small, and they spread out meters and meters and meters through the soil. The plants feed the fungi, and in return, what they get is this extra reach throughout the soil. They franchise out their work to the fungi to go out into the soil and say, look, you know, we can capture resource from this volume of soil, but what about if we could go further and further and further and capture even more?
This kind of evolution between soil and plants and roots has been going on, what, for millions of years? Without us contributing to it. So what sort of take-home have you got for us as gardeners?
That's a very good question. And probably the best thing we can do is we can leave them to it. Soils are extremely complex, dynamic, and vibrant systems that are full of life. And to put it into context, Carol, a single teaspoon of healthy soil contains more living organisms than there are people that exist on the earth.
Wow. Soil is just wondrous. Wasn't that fascinating? All those things we've learnt about roots. For years, I mean 50 years or so, I've gardened this garden. I've admired my plants, beautiful foliage, gorgeous flowers. I mean, all of us are in close association with plants all the time, even if it's just the trees in the street when we walk into work. And yet, so much of what makes those plants be what they are is taking place right under the ground. And I just think it was wonderful to find all that out. But if we've learnt anything from that at all, don't dig. And honestly, the plants, especially through their roots, are going to do the rest. Just let them get on with it.
I find everything about that completely fascinating. There is so much that we have to learn about the way that life in the soil affects everything that grows, and therefore us. All you can do is just marvel at the work that's being done and how much there is to learn. Okay, enough of that. Back to practicalities. I've had legumes here, broad beans and peas, which, to be honest, suffered from the heat. And they weren't bad, but they weren't great. Cleared them, added a little bit of compost just to freshen up, and now I'm going to sow some turnips, which if we sow them now at the beginning of August, they'll be ready to harvest early October. I'm going to use this as a spacer and just draw a drill with the side of my hand. Right, this is purple top. The whole thing about turnips is they grow quite fast and you should eat them quite young. They're not a crop to sit in the ground. You need to sow as thinly as you can. In an ideal world, your average turnip is going to be the size of a small apple. So ideally, you will sow them each about 2 or 3 inches apart. There we go. Having done that, you need to cover them over. And the easiest way is just get your hand either side and just run it down the drill. And that forces soil over the top. We mark that, put that in. Now, the old-fashioned way, but certainly when I was a child we always did, we didn't write labels, we just got the seed packet and stuck them over a stick like that. And that way we knew exactly what we had. I'm actually now going to sow some beetroot while I'm about it. This is chioggia. Now, beetroot is a crop that will be ready to harvest round about the same time as the turnips, sort of Octoberish, but also, unlike the turnips, will sit in the ground for much longer. So if we don't eat them all up, we can keep harvesting them throughout winter and even into next spring. And of course, in spring, beetroot fresh leaves are wonderful to eat as salad. So, same principle. I wonder if I can do this without kneading. I can show you how to grow beetroot, but why would you grow it? Because you can buy beetroot anywhere. One, you can choose a whole range of beetroot that you certainly can't get from a shop. I've got a yellow beetroot. There are beetroots that are long, not necessarily round, others that are slightly flat, others that are perfectly ball-shaped. And, of course, you can eat them completely fresh. Well, all that, to me, is a really good reason to grow anything. If you're sowing anything or planting anything at this time of year, best time to do it is in the evening, and then water it, and that will mean the water won't evaporate. If you have to do it in the morning, do it early. Don't do it in the middle of the day, because that water would just evaporate out. Right. Those should germinate in about 5 to 10 days. Not a lot I can do. Keep them weed-free, keep them watered, and then when they get to a certain size, it is worth thinning if you've sown your seed a bit too thickly, but that'll be down the line. Now, I do often think about why we garden, particularly why we grow certain foods. But for some people, why they grow a certain plant is so blindingly obvious that they don't need to explain it and probably can't. It's a passion, it's an obsession. And we went to visit a grower in Chesterfield who exactly fits that bill.
I used to grow quite a few veg and some flowers. The flowers took over, and that's all I grow now, just flowers. Gradually, the numbers increased from 500 to 1,000, and ultimately 2,400, but now we're down to 1,800, which is more reasonable. My name is Peter Farrow, and I live in northeast Derbyshire, and I have a passion for showing gladioli. Coming here is like my happy place, so whatever needs doing, I'm happy to do it. They come in various sizes, the miniatures and small size, the mediums, the large, and then the giant. Here we can see the difference between the small flowered variety and the giant flowered variety. The smaller flowered are probably better for growing in the garden because they don't need staking, whereas the giant ones tend to be grown by the specialist because they get damaged by the wind and rain. This is Pink Elegans, and it is a large flowered variety, which means that the bottom floret is between 4.5 and 5.5 inches. And this is a really nice gladiolus. The petals are a deep pink around the edges, going into a nice white throat. It has a very good teardrop shape, starting off broad at the bottom and narrowing towards the top. It is an easy one to grow and to show. One of the attractions is that they are big and blousy. Gladioli are members of the iris family, and they have the special leaves, which are sword-shaped. Gladius means sword in Latin. Typically, you would have 7 leaves on a plant, and then the spike starts to come up. One of the things with gladioli is, if you want perfection, then there's perhaps a 1-day window when they are perfect. So to try and show as many as possible, you have to grow a lot. So I've got a succession of flowers. I started on May the 1st this year and went right through to nearly the end of May planting them. The secret to growing gladioli is in the preparation of the corms before planting. The first thing is to make sure that they've broken dormancy. When you buy the corms, then they have a papery covering on them. So you need to peel that off, put them in the light for at least 2 to 3 weeks, and then you'll get buds forming on top and root nodules underneath, and then dormancy will be broken. Quite a lot of people don't know that, and they plant them and they don't come up, simply because they are still dormant. They do like good drainage, so you can put grit or sand underneath them. They need a base dressing of fish blood and bone as they get started, and probably another dose later on, beginning of July. That should keep them going. If you want to use liquid feeds, then that's fine as well. Once they get going, then they do need regular watering. If it's a damp season, then you don't need to water them very much. As long as you follow basic rules, then they're fine. They're not a problem. After 7 leaves have formed, then a flower spike forms in the base. Once the spike has come up, then you put a cane in behind it, tie it in once, and then you keep putting more ties in as the spike develops. So throughout end of July through August, the main job is making sure the stems are straight. I might be here 2.5 hours in the morning, 2.5 hours in the afternoon, and still I come back the next day and there are more waiting to be done. No, it's not boring, it's challenging. Next week it is Southport Show, and the judging is on Thursday morning. So on Tuesday morning I will cut my flowers, and with a large one like this I will be looking for about 4 florets open, because they come open 2 florets per day, so that they will be perfect for Thursday morning. They have a cane fastened, and then the cotton wool is applied behind the florets to put them into position, and then in the front more cotton wool goes in to spread the florets out. The flowers are transported to the show in the back of the car in florist boxes, and so by the time they get to the show they're in need of a drink. The cane is taken off the back and the flower supported by newspaper in the water. And then we look at how to dress it. That involves taking the cotton wool out and arranging the florets. And what we're looking for is the perfect teardrop shape. So we start at the bottom and work up so that you've got a nice overlapping set of florets. This is a good flower. Yeah, this would do well on the show bench. It's good size, good form. That would be in with a good chance of winning a prize. And I'm a qualified judge. I show to test myself to see how well I can do. I'm basically competitive, and I go also to meet my friends who are exhibitors. We enjoy meeting up and testing ourselves against each other. So at the National, I had a very successful show. I won 6 first prizes out of 10, and I won the most points, giving me a beautiful trophy, which is made from solid silver, and it has pride of place at home. It's a great feeling. It makes me feel good.
These leaves look a bit gladioli-like, but these are bearded irises. And the truth is, I don't have many gladioli here in the garden. A few in the jewel garden, and that's it. It's a very, very popular show flower. My mother used to grow it as a cut flower. I can see it now, growing each gladioli staked. There will be a great mass of gladioli, and then next to them dahlias, and only grown as cut flowers. And they don't quite reach deep into my soul. But a lovely bearded iris goes right to the heart. The problem being, of course, that bearded irises like really good drainage, and we don't have that at Longmeadow, which is why I've got them here in a raised bed. And what I'm doing is I'm lifting some now, and I want to divide it up. But rather than do it right here, I'm going to take this down to a table. Now, this is one clump. And the reason why I've dug them up, and you could dig up your bearded iris if they're forming clumps, is that they should be divided regularly. If you divide them up and replant them, you'll get renewed vigor and therefore more flowers next year and the year after. So, if I see if I can pull them apart, I will, because I don't want to cut the rhizome. There is the rhizome. These are the roots, and that's what's feeding it. And the rhizome is storing up the food for next year's flower. So the conventional advice is that should sit on the surface of the soil, so it gets full sun, and the expression always used is to bake. What we've experimented with was actually not putting this on the surface, but burying it an inch or two below the soil, because it can get too hot. You know, we're used to English summers where mid-20s, maybe late 20s if it's a very hot day, and we've had here temperatures of 36, 37, even reaching 38. That's really a lot hotter. So this is the experiment we've been doing, is to bury them. They're very healthy. I have to say it didn't flower tremendously well, but it was only the first year. So just trim it back. So trim the foliage back to at least half or a third. And what that will do is stop them rocking in the wind, because the roots won't have any purchase. And when you have roots like that, trim these back too. So you've got a nice compact root system, much reduced leaves, a good rhizome, strong rhizome. You've got these shoots coming off it. That will make a very healthy plant. You don't need to do this every year. You only need to do it when they get congested. I would suggest once every 3 or 4 years was fine. But these will go back in the raised bed, slightly spaced apart, not to create more plants, but to create more flowers. And that's why we grow them. Right, well, certainly this is a job that could practically take me all weekend. But here are some for you, which I promise you, you could do in slightly less time. The flowers of Euphorbia coraceus wolfenii are magnificent in full display in spring, but they're over now, and they should be cut back. Don't just take off the flower heads, but follow the stem as low as you can and cut it off at the base. These can safely go on the compost heap, and the new growth will supply next year's display. As soon as chili plants start to produce flowers and fruit, it's time to give them a high potash feed. Do this weekly using a liquid feed. You can either use a proprietary tomato feed, homemade comfrey, or as I do, a seaweed feed. Don't be tempted to mix it too strong. Follow the instructions and do this once a week to replace one of the daily waterings, and you'll find you'll get better flower production and therefore more fruit. If you've got bare soil, you can slow down evaporation by putting on a mulch. It doesn't matter what you use as long as it's an organic material, but garden compost is ideal. Spread a layer between the plants, making sure you put it onto damp soil first, so water if necessary. And this will slow down evaporation, making more of that precious moisture available to the plants themselves. Watering has been the main theme of my garden and I guess most of your gardens all this summer. Plenty of you are under a hosepipe ban. Luckily we're not, but who knows, it may come. But if you have access to water, do use it carefully and wisely. First of all, water the soil, not the plant. Never use a sprinkler. Never use a spray, because all that will do is wet the foliage, which will evaporate, won't reach the soil, the plant will get any benefit from it at all. So you want the water to go as deep as possible, and then the plant will go and find that water. Now, the deeper it is in the ground when it finds the water, the healthier it will be. So if and when you water, water long. And better to do that once a week than just give it a little bit of a water every other day. Let's hope we get some rain soon. Not today, though. And that's it for today. Next week, we are at Damson Farm with Francis, and I'll see you back here at Longmeadow soon. So until then, bye-bye.